In 1896, in Amboy, a small rural town in southern Minnesota, a building was built. The purpose of this building was to be a high school, to educate the future of America. The surrounding towns and Amboy itself had kids come over to receive an education from a great board of teachers and staff. Another addition to the school was built in 1906, making the school into two parts. West, the original building built in 1896, and the newer addition, East, built in 1906. In the years of 1954 and 1955, the school had a newer addition added onto it with the increasing number of students and the lack of space, even with the addition that was added in 1906. The Amboy High School was its own independent district. Eventually, the schools in the area consolidated together in 1989 and created Maple River, from being the Amboy Chargers to now being a Maple River Eagle.
Our whole high school probably, there's probably 30 to 50 kids in each class. I was in band and in choir, so for my whole high school career. I was also on the annual staff. I was the editor for my senior year. For a short time I was also on the drill team, but then they canceled that program. So I had that for my freshman year. So I was active in as many things as we could. Actually, back then I was looking through the annual to see. They said I graduated in 1980, and actually they hadn't started girls sports until 1975.
Really?
There was no volleyball. There was no softball. There was no girls basketball until 1975. It was kind of different, especially because I hadn't been around for 20 some plus years, and so some of them did not realize who I was. And then when they finally introduced myself, they're like, "Oh, really?" Makes them feel older, I'm sure, because then they had my children in their classes, and they were just starting out as new teachers back when I first had them. So kind of sad. I watched it. Every day I would kind of drive to the back side of it there and watch the demolition going on. And we know we needed it to be done. I mean, there was issues with people breaking into the school. There's vandalism, broken windows. The school wasn't going to be repaired, so it was time. But it was sad to watch it go down.
The school would be used for nearly 113 years, just a little bit more than a century. From 1896 to 2009, you could hear the kids laughing, messing around, and going from class to class.
So in 2005, the summer of 2005, I didn't have a teaching job, and I was just planning on subbing again, and a part-time reading job opened up. And so I probably was there, I want to say, about 4 years.
4 years.
I started out there as a half-time reading teacher. So for my first year, I was a half-time reading teacher, and then I did a bunch of odd and end jobs if they needed somebody to supervise the computer lab and do different things like that. Then they increased it to like 75%. In my last 2 years, I was actually full-time reading teacher there, and I did the first part of the day in Amboy, and then I had classes. I had some ninth grade reading classes over here in the high school. Yep. The atmosphere was wonderful. When I got my job there, they had a veteran staff, and they were very well established because most of those staff members that were there started in Maple River West Middle School when Mapleton, Amboy, Good Thunder, and Minnesota Lake started the consolidation process in 1989. So I was very fortunate to walk into a situation where there was a great staff. They had a great culture. They did a lot of the middle school concept with homerooms, and they had study hall, and I mean it was a very unique situation because in that entire building it was just 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and the staff worked great together, and they were very open to a new person coming in because they were all there for a long time. Being the first teaching job, there's a lot of good memories over there, and so it's tough to swallow, but sometimes change isn't always the easiest thing, but change at that point was necessary as far as if you look at the financial side of things. As a teacher and knowing the atmosphere over there and all the good times that we had, it was tough. There's a lot of changes. So I went over there. I was a reading teacher, and then when they close the school, they have to, go through everybody's license. And I actually was fortunate enough to be not cut, and I was saved. So I started over here in room 204 as a social studies teacher. And the philosophy when we first came over here was we tried to still isolate the middle school on one end and the high school over there. But then now, as times have changed and having to have shared teachers, we've kind of turned into, more of a high school, middle school combo, which, it's been a good transition. But when you're over in, when we were over at Maple River West Middle School in Amboy, you just had 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, so the atmosphere was really good. The students were awesome. Here at Maple River, we were fortunate. The staff was great. We had good admin over there. You just look back at the middle school's concept, and, one memory was, even when we came here and still had homeroom, you really connected with those homeroom students. So you might have 15, 20 kids in your homeroom, and if you had them for 3 years, you really got to know them. And then you asked about extracurricular. Well, yeah, at the time I was coaching both basketball, boys basketball, and baseball, so I was involved in that. And then I got, for 5-6 years I did the student council. So, you got to see the kids in a different element when, every year we did 3 to 4 middle school dances. So, you had the teaching side of it as the memories, but then you also had those homeroom competitions, you had, the snow week, all those different things that was just kind of that school, which were really good memories.
During the school year of 2008 to 2009, the school board and the City Council of Amboy got together to discuss the future of the building. With all the problems that the school had, structurally and financially, they decided for the best to shut down the school in Amboy.
So it would have been 06 to 09 or something like that, roughly around there, give or take a few years. It was good. It's the last class to go all the way through, so we have that under my belt. Yeah, it was a little weird knowing that the school was going to be destroyed or closed, because we had to help teachers pack up stuff. So that was a little weird, but otherwise it's normal middle school time, I guess, other than that. Yeah, that's pretty much a junk school, so it's probably good it went. I didn't really care all that much. Drive by it every day and say a little prayer, but other than that. I think just kind of hanging out with friends during recess, mostly usual middle school stuff. Being with some of those teachers that after that all kind of went to different schools, so yeah.
The school was finally taken down after years of not being used in 2020. The city of Amboy bought the property and came up with a tentative plan for the future use of the open lot. The city plans to have a memorial park dedicated to the building and its history right where the bell and the old arch still stand. They also plan to add a community center along with more residential housing in the lot, as well as a meat locker. It was sad to see the school go, but the future of the lot where the school stood will prosper and bring new families to our school district.
So the main reasons were probably, we closed down to start because of the financial situation of the district. That was back in 2009. And then from there, when buildings sit, they deteriorate pretty quickly, and it was just time for that building to come down. Like I said, it was financial reasons to close it in 2009, and then there was a group that looked at trying to make something else about, in that building. That ended up falling through, and so then that building sat there, and then ended up, we didn't have money to demo it at that time, because in order to demo buildings, to get the money, you have to have a bond election. So through all of our election process, it was always in those different votes that we've had, and we were just waiting to pass a bond for that to come down. It was actually a pretty interesting demolition. The company is DRC, so they recycle as much as they can, and so metals and anything that they take out of that, and then they try to resell it back to be reused. So they are very careful about when they go through. They don't make a big mess. It's actually a pretty clean process for a demo. They make piles of like materials, They did a really good job. I've seen many demos, and that was probably one of the best ones I've seen as far as impact on the community. It wasn't loud, it wasn't dirty. I didn't really even get any complaints, so a lot of times you do with demos. So they did a good job with that. They picked through all of that. We started demo probably maybe August. I can't remember for sure. August. It probably took six to 8 months. It was fairly quick.
The Amboy City Council has created a tentative plan for the open lot, but it is still not final.
We would like to, they want to extend South Street to connect it up on both sides. And then they would like to, someone that's interested in a commercial property to build a meat market here in Amboy.
Yes.
So we're very excited for that to happen. We're working with him to get him some property so that by next spring he can hopefully move forward with that. The front of the school where the memorial and the bell are, they'd like to make that into a park area. And then we're looking at residential, building some ranch-style homes, maybe an apartment complex, something, since there's such a need for families, especially with the new school coming in, that we're hoping that we can bring families into Amboy, and with the possibility of a meat market, so we have a little bit of a grocery store, that'll help draw people in. Maple River's a good school district. They have the highest test scores, so we're hoping that people want to come to this area, and we're only 10 miles away. And so that's the plan, is to develop it mainly into residential area. They have thought about expanding a community center, possibly like basketball court, tennis court, pickleball court, a walking area, something so people have things to do in town. So those are some ideas that have been thrown out, and hopefully we'll see them develop over the next 2-3 years.
The school in Amboy had stood for more than a century. Many students have walked through the halls and have created countless everlasting memories. The school gave a lot for the people in our community, but with the endless plans and opportunities for the lot where the building stood, can give much more.